Thank you, Adham. So let's begin talking about mental health issues. Mental issues of people of First Canada describe these challenges and disadvantages that Aboriginal people face outside of their communities and experiences that cause distress to their personalities and identities to become weaker and them to relocate. More than 150,000 American and Native community children have been torn from their homes and relocated to Indian schools. When they believe like they are constantly being targeted in their households, a community gets started and is determined to hold on to their beliefs. This manifests as having more severe concerns like facing a decline of well being, resulting in identity issues like marginalization, or which become aggravated by feeling threatened and losing their independence. A study from 2014 found significant pattern changes in the rates of juvenile suicide, fear, depression, developmental delay, crime, and pre existing mental health issues, and developmental disabilities among incarcerated Aboriginals and prisoners. Standard of living. It's essential to note that the positive effects of social conditions, including health, schooling, and work, are all linked to everybody's overall well being. Indigenous communities in Canada have suffered from cultural desecration, socioeconomic issues, marginalization, and bigotry. Because of the marginalization of cultures and the additional burdens of their inequity regarding social circumstances. Also, a person's environment plays a role in shaping social circumstances, especially where they live, how much money they get, and their family's background. While the citizens of Canada may take pride in their achievements concerning socioeconomic issues, ethnic and racial groups such as education, job, training, health, and a criminal justice system, certain socioeconomic disadvantages exist between indigenous people and non inhabitants. Indigenous working environments are another problem that needs to be addressed. Indigenous people were in the situation where over one and a quarter of the population lived in overcrowded households relative to the non-indigenous population. Facing the challenge, about 40.6% of the Inuit and 8.6% of the Metis population lived in housing that was overcrowding in 1999. The proportion of the First Nations people who lived in cramped housing on the reservation was 36.8%, was more significant than the proportion of the First Nations people living elsewhere in Canada, which was 18.5%. Rights and policies. Rights and policy changes, mainly when directed at issues caused by the past, do not eradicate the past. The legacy of forced relocation on reservations, the institutionalization of many thousands of children, and the loss of land and identity are all visible in the disadvantages that many Aboriginal people face today, except in the absence of forcible expulsion. Aborigines often had no alternative but to come into villages, agricultural centers, and pastoral situations. The bringing together of several different peoples with different languages and traditions in settlements and missions raised new tensions. The availability of Western medical skills, schooling, and the technologies enhanced communications with the outside world. The increased coverage of television in remote areas and the introduction of satellite networks also contributed to the tensions. Alcohol proves to be a lethal substance. Payments for social services violate customary kinship laws. Aborigines who want to educate their children can discover that Western schooling undermines the conventional lifestyles of social systems. How their cultures were affected. Despite their diverse traditions and cultures, they face the same harsh realities: expulsion from their ancestral territories, denial of right to share their identity, physical assaults, and treatment as second class people. Indigenous groups are often ignored and discriminated against injustice in situations worldwide, making them much more vulnerable to harassment and assault. Indigenous human rights advocates who speak out to face threats and abuse, often backed up by the state. Furthermore, persons may be sexually assaulted and executed simply for belonging to indigenous people. Indigenous people peacefully attempt to protect their cultural identities or exert sovereignty over their ancestral territories, which are also rich in minerals and wildlife, have resulted in charges of treason or extremism. Indigenous groups account for 15% of the world's extreme poor population due to discrimination. They still have higher rates of illnesses, starvation, and internal migration than other communities around the world.